Hello and welcome back to Where's the Bandwagon. My name is Will and this is my reaction and breakdown to the rest of an Unearthly Child story. Sorry it took so long to put out the sequel. I've been working on other videos on my channel, specifically my other series where I break down new Who episodes going into detail, so check that out if you're interested. If you haven't seen part 1 of this breakdown and reaction, then you can use the card on the top right hand side of the screen, like the video if you enjoy it, and consider subscribing to support my content and to make sure you don't miss the next episode. Quick reminder, please no spoilers in the comments. Let's get to it. The episode starts off with the final shot of the last episode. I was half expecting it to cut into the TARDIS first to check in on the companions, but no, we go back to seeing the face of the shadowy figure from the first episode. In the second episode of New Doctor Who, The End of the World, they do something similar. You see with the first shot, it continues Rose's run into the TARDIS, which was the last shot of the pilot. I would have suggested that this was Russell T Davies paying homage to an Unearthly Child, but when researching for that episode in my breakdown series, I learned that this decision to start the second episode with the end of the first episode was made by the episode's director, Eros Lynn, rather than Russell T Davies himself. If you're interested in more of this kind of information, you can check out that episode by clicking the card on the top right hand side of the screen. We then jump to the K-People to set up the story that the Doctor and his companions will fall into. This is so great to see that it's not just a linear story that we follow the TARDIS crew through, but a complex plot of jealousy and competition and relationships of this band of cavemen. We have loads of different interesting characters, the son trying to live up to his father and prove he's a worthy leader, his faithful companion who stays by his side, and a challenger who will do anything to overthrow the leader. We also have this old woman who wants to keep things how they are and is opposed to progression. It's interesting how we're introduced to all of these characters even before we see the Doctor, Ian, Susan and Barbara in this episode. This again indicates that the plots of these episodes won't be simple, which is what I feared would happen before I started my classic Who journey. We do see some over-the-top acting, which is a little silly, but I'm all for it. Who cares? Funny faces all round. He's just giving it his all. I'm all here for it. We get our first look into the TARDIS, and it's weird to see that they've been knocked out due to the journey on the TARDIS. Now, I'm not sure if this was due to them tumbling around and hitting their heads, or it's something simple like it's their first trip through the time vortex, so that messes up their heads or something. Ian does say,
"Oh, I must have hit my head."
But it's strange that both him and Barbara were knocked out. Like, that seems very unusual. Maybe it was due to the way the TARDIS set off from last time, or that the Doctor just hasn't figured out how to pilot it safely yet. One of the instruments the Doctor highlights is the yearometer.
I'm afraid this yearometer is not calculating properly.
What a fantastic name. It sounds like something we'd hear from Wallace and Gromit.
To the mind manipulation omatic, we can brainwash the bunnies. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, very clever.
Well, this is a fine how-do-you-do, isn't it, Gromit?
We see that the TARDIS has a scanner, just like modern Who, and that it has a camera for outside the TARDIS.
Yes, that's the immediate view outside the ship.
This is used a lot in modern Who. Ian is completely convinced that they haven't moved, and this is great to see. It's likely what most people's reactions would be.
Just open the doors, Dr. Foreman.
Eh? Doctor Who? What's he talking about?
Here Ian calls the Doctor Dr. Foreman, so he thinks the Doctor is the owner of the scrap merchants in which the TARDIS was located. This is brought up again later in the episode.
Even some of the things Dr. Foreman says.
That's not his name. Who is he? Doctor Who?
The Doctor says he won't open the doors until it's safe to do so.
Are you going to open the doors or
No.
You see?
Not until I'm quite sure it's safe to do so.
This shows that the young man, the young Time Lord, is much more curious than the Doctor that we will see in the revival.
No, wait, environment checks.
Oh, yes, sorry. Quite right. Environment checks. Nice out.
If you think that's going to be trouble, we could always get back inside and go somewhere else.
I think we've landed inside a cupboard.
And immediately we know that he can't tell where or when they are easily.
Zero, that's not right.
Grandfather, do you know where we are?
Yes, we've gone back in time, all right. 1 or 2 samples, and I should be able to make an estimate.
You know, in New Who, we sometimes see him be able to tell both the time and place just by observing either outside the TARDIS or by looking at the TARDIS instruments.
There's an atmosphere. Early indications suggest that...
We're on Alpha Matraxis, the 7th planet of the Dandra system. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, all toxins in the soft band, 11-hour day, and... chances of rain later.
He thinks he's so hot when he does that.
But he can't do this in this episode. Again, this could just be that over the 900 years of time and space in between the two, he just gets the experience and learns how to do that. Another instrument is pointed out, which is the radiation counter.
You've got the radiation counter there. What's it reading?
It's reading normal, Grandfather.
Splendid, splendid.
We will see this again at the end of The Firemaker as a means to the cliffhanger to the next story. The dynamic between Ian and the Doctor is great.
So you still challenge me, young man?
Ian disbelieves the Doctor so much that he's amused and so confident he's calling out the Doctor for not opening the doors.
Well, just open the doors and prove your point.
You're so narrow-minded, aren't you? Don't be so insular.
Here, Ian wants to see the Doctor fail and be embarrassed when he can't prove that they've travelled. The Doctor himself stands up to the challenge. You know, he plays on Ian's mindset.
You really are a stubborn young man, aren't you?
All right, show me some proof. Give me some concrete evidence.
Knowing that the further he can push this challenge from Ian before proving Ian wrong, the more sweet the ridicule and the victory. This back and forth between Ian and the Doctor would continue throughout the story, both when they are tussling for leadership and when they are fighting over the moral battles. The Doctor talks poetically at seeing another planet for the first time.
Just believe them, that's
If you could touch the alien sand and hear the cries of strange birds and watch them wheel in another sky, would that satisfy you?
Yes.
This speech reminded me of the Doctor's dialogue with Astra in The Voyage of the Damned.
You dreamt of another sky. New sun, new air, new life. A whole universe teeming with life. Why stand still when there's all that life out there?
He opens the doors and we see the new environment.
Ah, see for yourself.
I don't know, it's so difficult not to look smug at this point.
It's not working.
The Doctor strolls off.
That's not on the screen.
Well, I've no more time to argue with you. I must get some samples.
This is another example of the Doctor acting casually when Ian and Barbara are just experiencing something completely astonishing. This is the Doctor winning the argument with Ian, gloating slightly in victory, and then strolling off like it's nothing. When talking about the set, I think it's really well done. You know, seeing the outside environment from inside the TARDIS really sells it, and production-wise, you can't really tell. I have a feeling that this is something to do with the video quality and the fact that because the camera quality isn't crisp, we can't see that it's fake. But as the years go on and the cameras and recording gets better and better, I fear that some of these practical effects will become more obvious and be more obviously fake. But I hope not, and for the time being, it looks fantastic. From the outside, looking back, it's really weird to see the TARDIS perched at this angle, but it looks pretty awesome. Seeing it like this makes it feel weird, as if it looks like it should topple over. This makes the machine feel more magical, and it feels like it's keeping itself upright.
It's still a police box. Why hasn't it changed? Dear, dear. How very disturbing.
It's so phenomenal that we get to see the chameleon circuit get stuck. I can't believe it. I always thought that the TARDIS would have been stuck before this episode.
Should have changed. Wonder why it hasn't happened this time. The ship, you mean? Yes, it's been an ionic column and a sedan chair. Disguising itself wherever it goes. Yes, that's right. But it hasn't happened this time. Wonder why not?
This brings up another interesting point about the Doctor from Series 12 of New Who. See, the TARDIS that she has is a police box, therefore, doesn't that prove that she's a Doctor from Jodie Whittaker's future? Or am I missing something, like, say, all the previous incarnations of the Doctor had a TARDIS that was stuck as a police box? I must be missing something. I vaguely remember reading that the makers of the show were originally going to have the chameleon circuit working, and that therefore the TARDIS would transform into anything and camouflage itself, but this was cut due to budgets. This is so interesting to hear that such an iconic style and prop wasn't made on purpose. Here I first noticed that the TARDIS is changing. You know, at the beginning of the episode the windows are white, but here they're kind of worn. I think this is because the trial pilot episode that they made had different TARDISes to the pilot that was actually aired. I did a little research on the episode and found out that after the pilot episode that wasn't used was filmed, they used a matte blue paint on the TARDIS to make it less pristine and more dirty. However, when they cut the rest of the story, they used some of the shots of the TARDIS from the first episode, therefore it flip-flops between this more pristine look and the worn-out version in the story. Speaking of the TARDIS, a couple of you made great comments about some of the points I made in the first part of this breakdown. Firstly, to David Trimboli, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, said that the pull to open sign on the TARDIS is for the phone in the side of the door rather than for the TARDIS doors themselves, so thank you for that. And secondly, someone who I've already mentioned before on this channel, John A. Short, made a great answer to one of my points in the last episode where I said that although Susan claims she made up the word TARDIS, we've seen other Gallifreyans use the word. And John's response was that when we hear Gallifreyans say the word TARDIS, we're hearing the translated version of the Gallifreyan word for TARDIS, so in Gallifreyan it sounds different. Thank you to the both of you, and as I'm using your comments in a video, you've each won a Doctor Who card. Stick around to the end of the video to see how you can claim it. Speaking of the card giveaway, for those of you that don't know, I give a card out if I use one of your comments in a video, but I also pick random subscribers to win these cards every part 1 video. Now I know this is a part 2, but I'm feeling generous, so we'll do it for this video as well. So here are the winners for this time. The winner out of the new subscribers is Joshua Wilson, and the winner of the existing subscribers is Zeke. So if that's you, if you've won, then comment down below which of the cards that you see on screen that you want me to send you, and we'll work out how I can get it to you. It's first come first serve basis for you winners, so comment down quick so that you don't miss out on your favourite card. And if you add an email or a social media link to your about pages on your YouTube channel profiles, then I can contact you about delivery. To you winners, you have 7 days to comment your card and get into contact with me before I'll have to move on and forfeit your prize. For the rest of you, don't worry, all you have to do is subscribe and you'll automatically be entered. Thank you for watching. Part 3 for this will be out in 48 hours time, so not at all long to wait, certainly not as long as last time. I'll see you then.